Hi, welcome to our channel where we share the most intriguing stories. Halfway down the gravel road to my lake cabin, I slammed the brakes. A fresh for sale sign stood on my private access road, my land. Minutes later, I found a realtor and strangers poking around my porch like they owned it. That's when I realized someone was trying to steal my life. I was about halfway down the gravel road to my lake cabin when I saw it. At first, I thought it was just another county sign. Maybe something about fire restrictions or trail closures, but when I rolled closer and squinted through the windshield, my gut twisted into a knot. A tall white post stuck in the ground, fresh paint still clean, with a bright red sign on it that read, "For sale, Sun River Realty, viewings by appointment only." I hit the brakes hard enough to jolt the thermos in my cup holder. That damn sign was planted smack in the middle of my private access road. The road I'd graded myself last spring after a monsoon washed out the old one. I sat there for a second trying to process what the hell I was looking at. Then I shifted into gear and kept driving, gravel crunching under the tires as I pushed toward the cabin. The second red flag came fast. A shiny black SUV was parked beside my woodshed. On the driver's door, there was a vinyl logo, Sun River Realty. A woman in heels was walking around with a clipboard, and two people, maybe in their 40s, were standing on my porch taking pictures. One of them was peeking through the front window. The door to the screen patio was open. I pulled up, killed the engine, and got out. "Excuse me," I barked, walking fast. "What the hell are you doing on my property?" The woman in the heels spun around, clearly startled. She wore that perky real estate agent smile that dissolves fast when things go off script. Hi there. Are you the seller's agent?" I stopped dead. "I'm the owner." Her face froze. "Wait, what?" "I'm Randy Thorne. I own this land. I've owned it for 15 years. Who told you this was for sale?" The other two people backed off the porch. The man muttered something like, "Oh, crap," and the woman with him quickly turned off her phone camera. The realtor was flipping through her iPad now, looking rattled. "I'm so sorry. This property was listed through Sun River HOA. I was told it was a community-owned parcel, that it was a decommissioned asset being transitioned to the HOA trust. My blood pressure spiked so hard I could feel it in my teeth. This is not a community asset," I said, keeping my voice from exploding by sheer force. "This cabin was built by my father in the 80s. I pay taxes on it every damn year. This is private land. How the hell did you get access?" She looked like she wanted to disappear. "I have a signed request for access. From Karen Wolford, president of Sun River HOA. It says," she pulled up a PDF on her tablet, "that this parcel was abandoned and unregistered, and that the HOA had legal stewardship pending reclassification." "That's fraud," I snapped. "Absolute fiction. And you're trespassing." The couple on the porch had already turned around and were power walking back to the SUV. The woman muttered, "I knew something was weird. Let's go." "Don't touch that door again," I shouted as they pulled it shut behind them. "You don't open things on land you don't own." I walked up and slammed the screen door closed just to make the point. The realtor apologized again, trying to backpedal. I pulled out my phone and told her flat out I was calling the sheriff. To her credit, she didn't argue. She packed up and left quickly, tires kicking up dust behind her. 15 minutes later, Deputy Rollins showed up. Local guy, mid-40s, solid. I'd met him once when I called in a couple of drunk teenagers fishing on my dock at midnight. "Everything all right, Randy?" "Not remotely." I explained the whole thing, showed him the sale sign, pointed out the tire tracks, the door left ajar. Then I handed over my folder from the glove box. Deed copy, survey map, tax record, and my laminated land use certificate. I carried it every time I came up here. Not because I thought someone would try to sell my damn cabin out from under me, but because you never know when someone's going to play HOA hardball. Rollins studied the paperwork, then walked the perimeter with me. Yeah, they're way out of bounds," he said. "Sun River's line stops about 400 feet back by the cedar break. Everything from there down to the lake, all yours." "I know." He nodded. "You want to press charges?" "For now." I want an incident report. And I want that sign removed." He agreed and logged it, snapped a few pictures, took down the license plate from the realtor's SUV. I dug the sign out of the dirt myself and chucked it in the truck bed. When Rollins pulled away, I stood there for a while looking at my front porch, trying to absorb the surreal reality of it all. Someone, Karen, had tried to sell my land, not claim it, not complain about it, not slap me with a citation. She had put it on the market, and that was only the beginning. I didn't sleep that night, not because of fear. Hell no. I've dealt with monsoon flooding, rattlesnakes under floorboards, and once even wrestled a busted water pump out of the mud in pitch dark. But this was different. This was someone trying to rewrite reality by way of paperwork and polished shoes. At dawn, I loaded up the truck and drove straight into Safford, headed for the Graham County Assessor's office. I didn't call ahead. I wanted to walk in, look someone in the eye, and ask what kind of bureaucratic wormhole I'd just been dragged through. The office was quiet, desert morning quiet, the kind where you can hear a copier whirring 3 rooms away. I stepped up to the reception desk, introduced myself, and asked to speak with whoever handled rural parcel history and HOA boundary claims. The receptionist, a kind older woman named Glenda, gave me a polite smile and disappeared into a side hall. A few minutes later, she returned with a man in a short-sleeved dress shirt and tired eyes. "Mr. Thorne," he said, offering a handshake. "I'm Lyle. I handle property boundary reconciliation and recording errors. Heard there was some confusion about a lake cabin." I followed him back to a little office that looked like it hadn't seen daylight since 1998. We sat down, and I pulled out my documents. I need to know how the hell my land ended up in a real estate listing. Lyle took his time going through the papers. "Looks good here. Matches our database. All right, parcel 1247. Yeah, that's marked as private ownership. Been on file under your name for 15 years. No flags, no liens, no restrictions." He turned to his monitor and started typing, then frowned. "Now this is odd." My jaw clenched. "What?" "A few weeks ago, we received a Form 334-Z, he said, scrolling. "That's an abandonment and reassignment notice. It was filed by a Karen Wolford, listing herself as the acting steward of the Sun River Bluffs HOA. She submitted a claim that the property was unoccupied, non-maintained, and that there had been no registered owner since the late 1990s. What the hell is she talking about? I pay taxes on that place every year. I got receipts going back to Bush's first term." He held up a hand. "I believe you, but we're required to flag any claim like that for internal review before it reaches the auditor's office. Normally, these get screened out immediately." But here's the kicker. She attached a notarized affidavit claiming visual verification of abandonment, along with photos of the cabin from over the winter when it was snowed in. So she stalked the place. Seems so. Based on that, one of our junior staffers forwarded the parcel to an interim list used for HOA conflict review, purely procedural. But the second it entered the system, it was scraped into the MLS database as a potential auction candidate. Technically speaking, it triggered a preview window where realtors could request access to list it. That's how the damn listing happened. Exactly. I sat back in the chair, staring at the ceiling. You gotta be kidding me. All because some nutjob president filled out a form and took some creepy pictures from the tree line. Lyle sighed. "I'll flag the file. I'll attach your documents and a full ownership history. We'll submit a notice of fraudulent claim, and I'll personally remove the parcel from all external feeds." I nodded. "Good, but I want this logged officially." "It will be. Do you want to file a complaint with the Assessor's Fraud Division?" "Already filed with the sheriff, but yeah, I'll file it here too." He printed out a form, and I filled it out on the spot. While I signed the last page, I asked, "Did anyone else actually inquire about the listing?" He paused. "Yes, actually. We logged 2 viewings. One was yesterday, your encounter. The other was a couple from out of state, California plates. They had asked for lake access permits, said they wanted to open a wellness retreat." I almost laughed. Yeah, nothing says wellness like fraudulently buying someone's fishing cabin. I left that office with my file updated, complaint logged, and a pit in my stomach. I had no idea who else had seen that listing. And while the MLS post was taken down within hours, I knew how fast bad information spread in this state. Arizona's full of snowbirds and land chasers just looking for a discount. I headed next to the county recorder's office to request official certified copies of every document that showed my ownership chain. I wasn't taking any chances. If Karen wanted to play paperwork games, I was bringing a flamethrower to her damn bonfire. While waiting at the window, I got a call from a friend of mine, Cody, a local hunting guide who sometimes stayed at the cabin in the off-season. He sounded uneasy. "Hey, you up at the lake?" "Was," I said. Why? I got a call this morning from someone claiming to be with Sun River HOA. They asked if I'd been staying at a community structure without permission. Said they might press trespassing charges. I felt my pulse kick again. What did you tell them? That they were full of crap. But Randy, they knew my name. They knew I stayed up there last March. That's not public record, which meant someone had been watching the cabin, keeping logs, collecting names. That evening, I drove back up, parked next to the cabin, and walked the perimeter with a flashlight. I found one set of tire tracks I didn't recognize, down by the edge of the lake where I kept the canoe tied up. No real damage, but I knew, deep down, that this wasn't just some overzealous HOA president. This was calculated, coordinated, and it wasn't over. 2 days later, I was sitting in my cabin sipping hot coffee and watching a heron stalk the far edge of the lake when I saw the dust cloud, not from the north trail like usual. This was coming from the wrong direction, the service road that cuts in from the Sun River development, the one I had personally chained off 2 years ago after a delivery truck tried to use it as a shortcut and ended up stuck in the mud. I stood up, mug still in hand, and stepped onto the porch just in time to see a silver Lexus SUV roll up to my gate and stop. The chain I'd bolted to the cedar posts was gone. Clean cut, no lock, just gone. The passenger door opened, and out stepped Karen Wolford. I recognized her from the HOA pamphlet one of my city buddies had shown me months ago. She was even more smug-looking in person. Bleach blonde bob, oversized sunglasses, clipboard clutched like a holy text. Behind her were 2 men in matching khakis and navy windbreakers, both wearing ID badges around their necks like they were from the damn FBI. Karen walked toward me like I was a tenant in her trailer park. "Mr. Thorne," she called out, voice sugary and firm. "I'm glad you're here. We've come to formally serve notification that this property is under temporary HOA stewardship pending legal review." I set the coffee down slow. "Lady, I don't know what delusion you're operating under, but this is private land and you're trespassing. Again." She didn't flinch. "This cabin was improperly recorded during the last parcel revision and lacks a verified residential usage license. Under Sun River Bluffs Ordinance 11B-. That doesn't apply to me. This structure is now categorized as communal interest property due to its proximity to HOA recreational planning zones. As president, I'm within my rights to act as steward until proper title is clarified." One of the khaki clones stepped forward and tried to hand me an envelope. I didn't touch it. "Put that down and back off," I warned. "You step 1 foot on that porch, and I'll have you for criminal trespass." Karen turned to the other man and nodded. Then she pulled out her phone and calmly dialed. "Hi, yes, this is Karen Wolford, president of the Sun River Bluffs HOA. I'm at our lakeside community structure, and there's an aggressive man here refusing to leave. He's been yelling, and I believe he may be unstable or squatting. We need officers immediately." I stared at her. She just smiled at me, like she'd already won. 10 minutes later, I heard sirens coming down the ridge. I stood exactly where I was, arms crossed, documents already laid out on the patio table, certified deed, historical plat map, tax assessments, a letter from the assessor's office with private rural parcel, not within HOA jurisdiction printed in. Bold at the top. 2 deputies stepped out of the SUV. Different guys this time. Younger, less familiar. Karen made a beeline for them. "There he is," she said, pointing. "He's been squatting here for months. He threatened my staff. I don't know if he's armed." I didn't say a word. I just looked at the nearest deputy and slowly lifted the folder. "Name's Randy Thorne. Here's every document you'll need." To their credit, they took the time to look. 10 minutes passed while I stood silent, and Karen kept up her little performance on the side, demanding that they enforce community safety standards and remove the squatter from HOA land. Finally, one of the deputies turned to her. "Ma'am, this parcel is clearly private. It's not within your HOA's legal boundary. We also have record of a prior report filed by Mr. Thorne 2 days ago regarding false listing activity involving your name." Karen's face twitched. "That's nonsense. I've got planning documents. We've been reviewing this area for potential trail expansion for years. Everyone in the community knows this is future shared space." The deputy didn't budge. "That may be your plan, ma'am, but it's not the law. You filed incorrect information and made a false emergency report. We'll be filing a report with the county attorney." Karen's voice rose 2 octaves. "He's a fraud. Look at this dump. No one lives here. It's abandoned. The property was meant to be part of Sun River. This whole zone was originally drafted as recreational common space. He's manipulating loopholes. The second deputy, clearly done with it, cut in. Ma'am, I'm going to ask you to leave this property immediately. We'll forward the 911 transcript and both incidents for prosecutorial review. One of the windbreaker guys started muttering that he didn't sign up for this and practically jogged back to the SUV. The other followed. Karen stood frozen, breathing heavily. "You'll regret this," she said finally. "This isn't over." "Ma'am," the deputy said, holding open her door. "Step in. Now." She drove off without another word. After they left, I sat down on the porch and poured myself another cup of coffee. Cold, but I didn't care. That woman had just weaponized emergency services like they were her personal goon squad. She wasn't just obsessed, she was dangerous. The thing about people like Karen is they think paperwork is magic, that if they wave enough stamped documents in your face and bark about community rights, they can rewrite ownership, history, even the damn topography of Arizona. But if she wanted a war of documents, I was ready to nuke her from orbit. After the second false police call, I drove straight into town, not home. I needed coffee, cell service, and a quiet place to work. I found all three at a diner on Main that hadn't changed since the Nixon years. Vinyl booths, bad coffee, and silence. Just what I needed. I called my attorney, Marissa. She's been through 2 divorces, 3 ranch seizures, and once shut down a fracking company trying to drain water rights from a widow. She picked up on the first ring. "You sound like you're grinding molars, Randy." "What happened?" I told her. Every detail. When I got to the part about Karen forging claims, calling 911, and telling realtors my cabin was abandoned, she paused for a moment, then asked one question. "Do you want to crush her legally or permanently?" I grinned. "What's the difference?" "Well," she said, tapping keys audibly in the background, "crushing her legally gets you a nice court ruling. Crushing her permanently involves finding leverage and pulling the rug out from under her throne. Let's start with leverage." We started with a simple search. Karen Wolford, Graham County, real property tax rolls. And there it was, her home address. A big stucco 2-story near the entrance to Sun River Bluffs. A little too modern, a little too smug. Standard HOA royalty digs. Then Marissa kept digging. "Bingo," she said. "That house is tied to a reverse mortgage. One of those sweetheart deals where they tap equity for cash and don't pay it back till they die or move out. Looks like she hasn't paid property taxes in 2 years." I blinked. "Wait, how?" She probably used the mortgage to fund whatever HOA nonsense she's addicted to. But here's the kicker. The mortgage company offloaded the loan as part of a bundle last quarter. The new Lion holders a Phoenix asset fund. They just filed pre-foreclosure. This house is about to go to auction. I sat back in the booth. "You're telling me her house is for sale?" Marissa paused. "No, I'm telling you it's about to be. And if we move fast, we can buy the debt, trigger a trustee sale, and own the damn thing in less than a month." I let that sink in. Karen had tried to sell my cabin. Now I had the chance to buy her actual house and legally evict her from her own kingdom. I'm in. Over the next 4 days, we moved like hell. Marissa created a holding trust, clean, private, no connection to me on paper. She contacted the Phoenix firm, made an offer on the mortgage lien, and they jumped at it. No questions asked. Apparently, HOA royalty isn't as financially bulletproof as they pretend. While we waited for paperwork to clear, I kept things quiet. I didn't go back to the cabin. Let her think she won. Let her get comfortable. We needed silence for this move to land hard. 10 days later, the lien officially transferred to our trust. We waited 2 more days, then issued a notice of default and intent to accelerate foreclosure. Certified, notarized, delivered by courier. 3 days after that, the home was scheduled for trustee sale. I didn't attend the auction in person. Marissa did, wearing a denim jacket and mirrored sunglasses. Our bid was uncontested. We secured the property with full legal authority, clean title, and a pre-signed deed. The moment the gavel dropped, the house was ours. The very next morning, I signed an order to change the locks. No press, no noise. We served the notice via certified courier with a printout stapled to her front door. To occupant, your property has been lawfully foreclosed upon, pursuant to Arizona Revised Statute Section 33-807. All remaining possessions must be removed within 72 hours. Entry without permission shall be deemed trespassing. For extra clarity, I had a new sign printed and nailed it beneath. New ownership. Direct inquiries to Randy Thorne. Yeah, I signed it. Let her see the name in black and white. I parked across the street with a bottle of iced tea and a pair of binoculars. It wasn't subtle, but it didn't need to be. I wasn't hiding anymore. Karen's white Lexus rolled into the driveway just after 5 in the evening. She climbed out with her usual tote bag, phone to her ear, gesturing wildly as she yapped into the void. From her body language, I could tell she was in full HOA dictator mode, probably ranting about shrub height violations or porch flags that didn't align with the neighborhood aesthetic. Then she stopped mid-sentence. I saw it hit her. The bright orange notice of sale stapled to her front door, the new lock, the deadbolt with a different finish, the sign that said, New Ownership, Randy Thorne. From across the street, I could hear her scream. She dropped her bag, rushed up to the door, yanked on the handle like a rabid raccoon. Nothing. She started pounding on the door with the flat of her palm, then backed up and kicked it. The sound was pathetic, a dull thump that wouldn't scare a moth. Then she saw me. I gave her a small wave and a bigger smile. She stormed across the lawn like she owned the sidewalk and jabbed a finger at my window before I even rolled it down. "You think this is funny?" she spat. "This is illegal. You can't just steal someone's house. I'm calling the cops." "I hope you do," I said calmly, and held up the deed behind the glass. She blinked. I made sure she could see the official county stamp. Her eyes darted, reading it faster than I thought her brain could process words. This is harassment," she screeched. "This is targeted persecution. I'll sue." "You already tried that," I said, "when you filed a fraudulent claim on my cabin and listed it without title, when you lied to the police, when you committed real estate fraud. You remember, right?" Her face drained to the color of drywall. "I have a board meeting in 2 days," she said, her voice cracking. "You can't do this." "I already did." She took out her phone and called 911. Again. I stayed parked. When the police arrived, she ran up to them in tears, waving her arms, ranting about home theft, targeted sabotage, extremist cabin men, whatever that meant. The officers listened for a minute, then they came over to me. One of them, a young guy I'd met during the second cabin incident, nodded in recognition. "You got the deed?" "Right here." I handed it over. "Trustee sale, reverse mortgage default. All filings are with the county. I also have the lien purchase record if you need it." He flipped through the pages, scanned the QR codes. The second officer took Karen aside and calmly explained that unless she could prove fraud in a civil court, she was now trespassing. "You have 72 hours, he told her. "Start packing." Karen collapsed onto her front lawn like someone shot her. Her screams turned into dry, sobbing wails, her phone still in her hand, broadcasting every word into some poor soul's voicemail. I waited until the cops left before I got out. I walked up to the porch, slowly. Not to gloat. Okay, maybe a little, but mostly to finish it clean. "You tried to steal from me," I said. "You used your position to abuse the law, fake documents, call the cops on me for sitting in my own cabin. You wanted to play the system. I just did it better." She didn't reply. "I'm not pressing charges yet, but there are 4 civil cases pending. Marissa will be in touch." I turned and left her sitting there on the grass, mascara dripping like tar down her cheeks. For the next 2 days, I didn't hear a word from Karen, which was strange. She wasn't the type to go quiet. I half expected a press conference on her lawn or a GoFundMe campaign for community oppression victims. Instead, her house stayed dark. No cars, no lights, no HOA foot soldiers marching up and down the street with clipboards. I figured she was either licking her wounds or planning something stupid. I was wrong. It was both. On the 3rd morning, just before sunrise, I got a call from my attorney, Marissa. She sounded both amused and furious. "She filed a restraining order against you," she said, "claimed you ambushed her home, forcibly evicted her, and are an immediate threat to her safety. It's complete fiction, but will have to appear." I laughed. Let her dig the hole deeper. "That's not all," she added. "She filed a motion with the county to challenge the legality of the trustee sale." That part I took seriously. I got dressed, drove to the county clerk's office, and requested a certified copy of every document from the transaction. I even requested surveillance footage from the auction. It was clear as day. Everything had been done by the book. The mortgage had defaulted, the bank sold the lien holder opened the sale, and I won. Done. Then I got a call from Officer Langston, one of the guys who responded during the cabin fiasco. "Hey, just giving you a heads up," he said. "She's going around telling people you bribed the auction officials. We can't do anything unless she files a false report again, but keep an ear to the ground." By noon, 3 HOA board members had already resigned. Apparently, Karen's meltdown had gone viral in the most local, old-school way possible. One neighbor filmed her screeching on the porch. Another leaked her forged cabin listing. Someone even shared a screenshot of her exclusive community plan, which included a pier right where my cabin stood. I hadn't even posted anything, and the HOA was imploding from the inside, but Karen still wasn't done. That same afternoon, I got served at my office. A civil lawsuit from Karen personally. She was suing me for emotional distress, abuse of power, and malicious acquisition of her primary residence. Marissa reviewed the complaint and laughed so hard she had to put the phone down. "She spelled your name wrong in the filing," she finally said. "And she attached a fake deed for your cabin as her Exhibit A." We countered the next day with notarized ownership papers, full audio transcripts of the sale, and screenshots of her 911 calls falsely reporting me as a dangerous intruder. I also included a sworn affidavit from the rangers who had patrolled the lake area and confirmed that the cabin had never been abandoned and had been actively maintained by me for years. Then came the call I didn't expect. It was from the county assessor's office. A quiet voice on the other end told me, "Mr. Thorne, you may want to come down here. We've had irregular activity with your parcel file recently." I went down in person. Sure enough, someone had tried to digitally alter the status of my lake property a second time. They had submitted a new declaration claiming dereliction and unlisted heirs. It had been signed in Karen's name, and it used the same notary stamp from her HOA documents. Only this time, the clerk caught it and flagged it for fraud. They forwarded the file to the district attorney's office, and just like that, the civil case against her was no longer the most serious thing she had to worry about. A week later, I walked into the Graham County Courthouse, documents in hand, suit pressed, eyes forward. I wasn't there for Karen's nonsense civil suit. That hearing had already been pushed back after she failed to respond to our discovery requests. No, this time I'd been asked to testify in a preliminary hearing. The district attorney's office had opened a criminal fraud investigation tied directly to the altered property files. Karen had been officially named a subject of interest. Her forged filings, including the declaration of abandonment and the unauthorized listing, were now evidence in an active case. I was there to authenticate ownership records and provide a timeline of events. I kept it professional, even when describing the absurdity of seeing a "for sale" sign in front of my own cabin. After I finished, I stepped out into the hallway and spotted Karen sitting on a bench. She looked like a shell of the tyrant I remembered. Hair unkempt, pacing, holding a stack of messy papers like they might save her. The 2 men who used to follow her around like HOA stormtroopers were nowhere in sight. She noticed me and stood abruptly. "This isn't over," she hissed. I didn't say a word, just looked her in the eye and walked away. There was no need to gloat. The justice system was doing it for me. By the end of that week, 3 more HOA board members had resigned. The HOA's lawyer, some cocky guy from Mesa, quietly withdrew representation. Apparently, their insurance dropped them once the fraud case surfaced. And to top it off, someone leaked an internal HOA email where Karen demanded that residents submit personal cabin photos for HOA planning archives. It sounded harmless, until people realized she was building a case to reclassify all non-HOA structures in the vicinity as rogue dwellings. That broke the dam. Over a dozen residents filed formal complaints against her. One elderly couple even came forward saying Karen tried to fine them for letting their grandkids fish on the edge of my lake, claiming it was unsafe, unsanctioned recreation. I couldn't believe it. The woman had tried to micromanage a shoreline she didn't even own. Then, just as I thought this circus had peaked, I got a certified letter. Inside was an official notice from the HOA stating they had revoked Karen's presidency effective immediately. It wasn't even signed, just a typed letterhead and a 1-line acknowledgement. "Due to recent events, Ms. Karen Wolford no longer represents the interests of Sun River Bluffs HOA." But the real hammer dropped 3 days later. A detective from the county fraud division called to inform me that a warrant had been issued for Karen's arrest. Not just for the forged deed, not just for the false 911 call, but for a list of felony charges, including falsifying public records, filing fraudulent claims of ownership, and criminal misrepresentation of real estate. I didn't cheer. I didn't shout. I just nodded. Later that night, I drove up to the cabin. Not out of paranoia, but peace. I sat on the old porch, drank a beer, and stared at the water, still as glass. No trespassers, no strangers peeking in the windows. No fake agents. For the first time in weeks, it was quiet again. Almost, because in the distance from the road that led back to town, I saw red and blue lights, flashing, paused in front of Karen's house, and when they finally pulled away with her in the back seat, I knew. This time, it really was over. 2 weeks after Karen's arrest, I stood on the front lawn of her former house. My house now. The sun was just rising behind the mountains, casting long shadows across the empty cul-de-sac. It was peaceful, quiet, and mine to do with, as I pleased. I didn't buy this place out of revenge. Not entirely. It was strategy, insurance, leverage, and now that the dust had settled, I knew exactly what to do with it. I spent the next month transforming it, not into a private retreat, not into a rental. I turned Karen's old HOA financed dream house into a community guest lodge for disabled veterans and retired first responders. I named it Cabin 2. It had the same paint color, same roof line, but a very different soul. The old residents of Sun River Bluffs didn't protest. In fact, many stopped by just to shake my hand. Some even donated supplies. Turns out, most of them hated Karen's tactics, but had been too afraid to speak up. Now they saw what leadership with a backbone looked like. Meanwhile, Karen sat in county jail awaiting trial. Her bail had been denied. Flight risk, the judge said. Prosecutors tacked on a fourth charge after discovering she had attempted to forge another deed tied to an undeveloped lot near the river. That one really sealed it. My attorney told me they were recommending 10 to 15 years total, and that was before the civil suits began piling up. I wasn't involved in all of them, but I did file my own, quietly. Just a motion for full damages, including property fraud, emotional distress, and trespass. And since I owned her former home free and clear, I gave the court an easy solution: liquidate the rest of her assets and settle the judgment. They agreed. I didn't go to the sentencing hearing. I didn't need to. Instead, I drove up to the lake cabin, the original one, the place this war started. I fished for a while, grilled some burgers. Later, as the sun set, a couple of veterans from Phoenix checked into Cabin 2 down the road. One of them waved when he passed, said it was the nicest place he'd stayed all year, said he couldn't believe it used to belong to her. I laughed, told him he wasn't missing much. Before I went inside for the night, I walked over to the gate I'd installed at the front of her old driveway. There was a new sign now, etched into a bronze plate mounted on cedar. It read, "Former residents of Karen Wolford, confiscated, renovated, redeemed." And below that, in smaller letters, "Your HOA does not reach this far."